I found the divorce papers in the garage, not on the kitchen table where normal people ended marriages, not in my office where we handled bills and tax folders. She had spread them across the workbench between a rusted socket set and an open box of screws, like this was another household project she needed finished before dinner. Lauren stood a few feet away by the door that led into the house, one shoulder against the frame, head tilted down at her phone. The blue light washed over her face while her thumb moved in short, bored strokes. She didn't even pretend this was hard for her. "I'm done," she said. That was it. No build-up. No trembling hands. No speech about how we had grown apart. Just two flat words dropped into the smell of motor oil and cut wood. For a second, I only heard the old garage fridge humming in the corner. Outside, rain tapped softly against the driveway. It was just past 7. I knew because a digital clock above the workbench blinked 7:12 in dim red numbers, and because dinner was still sitting in a takeout bag on the passenger seat of my truck. Thai food, still warm. I had picked up her favorite curry because she texted me at 5 and said she had a lot on her mind. Now I knew what that meant. I stepped closer and looked down at the papers. My name was already typed in all the right places. County seal in the corner. Her signature on 2 pages. She had even clipped them neatly with a yellow tab where I was supposed to sign, like she was helping me get through a form at the DMV. "You could have at least done this inside," I said. Lauren gave a small shrug, still not looking up. "I didn't want a scene." That almost made me laugh. She had scripted this so carefully that even the location felt deliberate. The cold concrete under my shoes, the fluorescent light overhead, the way she kept her body turned half away from me, as if she was already gone. I reached for the top page, and that was when I saw it. Another envelope sat underneath the stack, mostly hidden by the last sheet. Thick cream paper. Not ours. Not junk mail. Not legal stationery either. A name was written across the front in black ink. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't Lauren's. I slid the divorce papers aside just enough to read it clearly. The moment I did, something inside me went very still. Lauren finally looked up from her phone, and for the first time that night, her face changed. Just slightly, but enough. Enough to tell me the envelope mattered more than the divorce. Lauren watched me like she was waiting for impact. I could feel in the way she held herself. Too still, too prepared. She wanted noise. Questions. Maybe anger. Maybe one of those ugly, desperate arguments people have, when one of them still believes there's something left to save. She had probably rehearsed replies on her drive home, little lines polished into place. I didn't mean for it to happen. We haven't been happy in a long time. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I gave her none of it. I pulled a marker from the workbench drawer instead of reaching for the pen clipped to the packet. It was one of those thick black permanent markers I use for labeling storage bins. The cap clicked off loud enough to make her blink. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Signing." Her eyes narrowed. "With that, it writes." Then I lowered the tip to the first page and signed my name. The ink bled heavy and dark across the paper. Not elegant, not careful, just final. Lauren straightened away from the doorframe. "You should probably read them first." "I'm good." I turned the page and signed the next one. Then the next. Same broad strokes. Same steady hand. I didn't rush, but I didn't hesitate either. Each signature landed exactly where she had marked it with those neat little tabs. And with every page I finished, the air in the garage changed. She had expected resistance. That was the script. Her cold announcement. My confusion. Her practiced attachment. My anger making her look reasonable. But calm ruins a performance faster than rage. "Ethan," she said, and now there was something new under my name in her voice. Not guilt, not regret, unease. "You're seriously just going to sign?" I uncapped nothing, explained nothing. I just turned another page. The smell of the marker was sharp in the cold air. Somewhere outside, a car rolled past slowly on the wet street. Water dripped from the edge of the garage roof in a steady rhythm. When I signed the last sheet, I set the marker down beside the papers and squared the stack with both hands. "There," I said. "Done." Lauren stared at me like I had missed a cue only she could hear. "That's it." I looked at her then. really looked at her. Cream sweater, phone still in her hand, fresh manicure, the faint shine of lip gloss. She had dressed for control tonight, not grief. "No," I said quietly, glancing at the second envelope still half hidden beneath the papers. "That's not it." For the first time since I walked into the garage, Lauren looked nervous. She thought the envelope was a problem. It wasn't. It was just confirmation. I slid it out slowly, turning in my hand like I was seeing it for the first time. Thick paper, clean edges, the name written with intention, not carelessness. Lauren took a step forward. "You don't need to look at that." That told me everything. "I think I do." My voice stayed even. No pressure, no edge, just quiet certainty. She folded her arms, a defensive reflex she probably didn't even notice. "It's nothing important." I almost nodded, like I believed her, like I hadn't spent the last 3 months watching patterns form where she thought there was randomness. Late-night fitness classes that always ended after 10. Ride-share receipts she forgot to delete. Same part of town, over and over. The way she started taking calls in the laundry room with the door half closed. Voice lowered just enough to sound private, but casual if I walked by. And the phone, not the one she carried everywhere. The other one, the one hidden behind the spare paint cans on the top shelf in the same garage. I had found it by accident at first, looking for a screwdriver, a cheap burner with a passcode she thought was clever. It wasn't. People who lie always repeat themselves. Same numbers, same habits, same timing. You just have to be patient enough to notice. I didn't confront her when I cracked it. I didn't need to, because what I saw wasn't chaos. It was routine, predictable, manageable. And the man on the other end of those messages, he wasn't who she thought he was. That part had taken more work. Names, cross-checks, a few quiet calls. One meeting that never circled back to me. By the time I was done, I knew more about him than she ever would, including the part she would never see coming. I tapped the edge of the envelope lightly against a stack of signed papers. "You know," I said, almost conversational, "the thing about patterns is, once you see them, you can't unsee them." Lauren's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you think you figured out." "I'm not guessing." That stopped her, not because of what I said, because of how easily I said it. I placed the envelope back down on the workbench, exactly where it had been, untouched, unopened. I already know enough. I added, and that was the moment the balance shifted, because for the first time since she said, "I'm done," she wasn't in control of what happened next. 3 days later, she hosted a support night. That's what she called it. I found out because she forgot to log out of her email on the iPad she left in the kitchen. The subject line read, "Girls' Night, I Really Need You." The location was a rooftop bar downtown. One of those places with dim lighting, overpriced cocktails, and just enough privacy to control a narrative. Lauren always knew how to build a story. By the time that night came, I already knew exactly how it would go. Soft lighting, a glass of something expensive in her hand, her voice lowered just enough to sound vulnerable. Carefully placed pauses, the kind that make people lean in. "I didn't want this," she would say. "He just checked out." Simple, clean, easy to believe. I didn't go. I didn't need to, but I did take a drive that evening. Parked across the street, engine off, rain still clinging to the windshield in thin streaks. It was just after 9. The rooftop was lit with warm amber lights, silhouettes moving behind the glass railing. I saw her almost immediately. Same cream sweater from the garage. Hair done this time. Lip gloss catching the light. She stood at the center of a small group, exactly where she needed to be. Control position. One of her friends touched her arm. Another leaned in close. Lauren shook her head slowly, like she was tired of explaining, but willing to share just enough. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. I watched the reactions instead. Sympathy at first. Nods. Soft expressions. Then something shifted. A pause too long. A question she didn't expect. Lauren straightened slightly, adjusting her posture. That tiny correction she always made when she felt control slipping. Her hand moved faster when she spoke now. Slightly sharper gestures. Too polished, too ready, too fast. People don't usually process the end of marriage in 3 days and host a curated version of it on a rooftop bar. Someone in the group crossed their arms. Another took a step back instead of leaning in. Lauren kept talking, but now she was working for it. That was the problem with stories. If the timing is wrong, people don't feel them. They analyze them. I sat there a little longer, watching her try to hold the room together. Then I started the engine and drove away, because while she was busy building her version of events, I had already started taking everything apart. While she was telling her version of the story, I was removing myself from it, quietly. No announcements, no warnings, just small, precise changes that didn't look like anything on their own. The next morning, I woke up at 6:10. Same as always. Coffee machine on. Black. No sugar. The house was still. Lauren hadn't come home yet. That didn't surprise me. I sat at the kitchen island with my laptop open and started with the accounts. Joint checking first. Not closed. Not emptied. Just restricted. Daily limits lowered. Transfer permissions adjusted. Notifications rerouted to my email only. From the outside, nothing looked different, but access had changed. Control had shifted. Next was the credit line. Same approach. Not dramatic, not aggressive, just enough to make everything slower, less automatic, less invisible. People don't notice when something stops working immediately. They notice when it stops working smoothly. At 7:02, I sent 3 emails. Our financial advisor, our accountant, and a corporate attorney who owed me a favor. Short messages. No emotion. Restructuring shared liabilities. Temporary review of joint assets. Authorization changes effective immediately. That was all. By 8:15, I was in my car. Not driving to the office. Driving somewhere else. Lauren believed she had partial ownership in the company. She didn't. Not really. She had access, visibility, a title that sounded important at dinners. But legally, structurally, everything important ran through me, and I had already started separating that month ago. Paperwork filed quietly, ownership redefined, dependencies removed. That morning, I walked into the office and handed in my resignation. No explanation beyond personal restructuring. No exit interview, just a clean signature and a final handshake. They didn't argue, because they already knew. By noon, my email was deactivated. By 1, my access was gone. And by the time Lauren woke up and checked her phone, the version of my life she thought she was still attached to no longer existed. I didn't rush home. I stopped for lunch instead. A small place off the highway. Ordered something simple. Ate slowly. No anger. No urgency, just clarity, because the most important part wasn't what I was taking away. It was what I was leaving behind, and she hadn't noticed any of it yet. 2 weeks later, I was gone. No announcement, no goodbye, no final conversation waiting to happen, just absence. Lauren didn't notice at first. That was the part that stayed with me. The house was still running on habit, lights on timers, subscriptions renewing, deliveries arriving at the door like nothing had changed. From the outside, everything looked intact. Inside, it was already hollow. I packed in stages. Not clothes thrown into suitcases or rush boxes stacked by the door. That would have been visible, predictable, easy to interrupt. Instead, I moved things the way you dismantle something valuable. Quietly, precisely, important documents first. Then the things no one notices until they're gone. Drives, backups, old contracts, personal records. A few items each day. Nothing that would trigger suspicion if she happened to walk in. She didn't. Most nights, she came home late. Sometimes not at all. When she did, she moved through the house like a guest. Phone in hand. Half present. Already somewhere else. That made it easier. By the end of the first week, everything that mattered to me was no longer in that house. By the second, I finalized the rest. New number, new accounts, new address registered under consulting firm that didn't trace back to me directly. Not illegal, just distant, layered enough that casual searches would lead nowhere useful. I signed the lease in person. Small coastal town. Quiet. The kind of place where people mind their business and don't ask questions if you don't give them a reason to. The air smelled different there. Salt instead of asphalt. On the last morning, I walked through the house one more time. 7:03 a.m. Same clock, same kitchen. The coffee machine was off. I didn't turn it on. No notes left behind. No message on the counter. No closure wrapped in clean sentences. Closure is something people expect when they think they still matter in your decisions. I locked the door behind me, dropped the keys into the mailbox, and left the house, the bills, the version of life she thought was still waiting for her. All of it stayed exactly where it was, for her to walk into later, for her to figure out. Alone, she expected a reaction. That was the part she built everything around. A message, a call, anger, accusations. Something she could point to and say, see, this is why it ended. Something she could use to anchor her version of events. Instead, she got nothing. The first few days, she probably didn't notice. Maybe she assumed I was staying somewhere else. Maybe she thought I needed space, that I'd come back once the dust settled, ready to talk, ready to negotiate terms she had already decided. Then the small things started happening. Her car declined at a cafe. Not rejected outright, just delayed, flagged, try again. The second time it didn't go through, she probably laughed it off at first, blamed the system, ordered something cheaper, paid another way, but patterns don't stay small. The next day, a subscription failed, then another, a payment she expected to clear didn't. A transfer didn't go through the way it used to. Nothing dramatic, just friction, and friction forces attention. That's when she would have tried to call me. The first time, confident. The second, slightly annoyed. By the third, she would have been standing still somewhere, staring at her phone, listening to it ring longer than expected, or not ring at all, disconnected. That's when silence stops feeling like space, and starts feeling like something else. I imagine her back in the house that night, lights on, walking from room to room, not looking for me. She already knew I wasn't there, looking for signs. Shoes missing, drawers lighter than they should be, closets that didn't feel full anymore. People don't notice what's gone. They notice what's missing. There's a difference. Missing has weight. Missing makes you stop. By the end of that week, she would have understood. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to realize this wasn't distance. It wasn't a pause. It wasn't something she could manage or spin or recover from. It was absence. Total. And the worst part wasn't what I had taken. It was what I refused to give her. No explanation. No closure. No reaction she could use to rebuild control. Just silence. And silence has a way of turning inward, because when there's no one left to answer your questions, you start asking them to yourself. And eventually, you don't like the answers. I didn't reach out. But information has a way of finding its path when you leave things open in the right places. It came through someone who used to orbit Lauren's life. Not close enough to be loyal. Not distant enough to be irrelevant. Her friend, Melissa. The kind of person who listens more than she talks. The kind people forget is paying attention. She found a way to contact me. New number. Short message. Thought you should know who he really is. No greeting. No explanation. Just that. I read it, sitting by the window in the new place. Late afternoon. Ocean flat and gray under a low sky. Coffee untouched beside me. I didn't reply right away. I already knew parts of it. But I was curious what version had finally reached her side. When I did respond, it was simple. I'm listening. Her reply came faster this time. He's married. I leaned back slightly in the chair. That part didn't surprise me. It confirmed. But then came the part Lauren never saw. And it's not just that. He knew exactly who you were. That made me still. Melissa sent a few screenshots. Not everything. Just enough. Messages. Conversations Lauren was never included in. My name. My company. Contacts. Opportunities. Introductions. Lauren wasn't the center of anything. She was access. A door. And he had walked through it carefully. Not rushed, not reckless, just strategic enough to stay invisible. Until now, I read one line twice. Stay close to her. He's useful. Not she. He. I closed the messages and set the phone down. Outside, a wave broke harder than the rest, the sound carrying through the open window. Lauren thought she had upgraded, that she had stepped into something better, more exciting, more alive. What she actually stepped into was a situation built around her, not for her. And the moment that became clear, everything she thought she controlled would start collapsing in ways she couldn't predict. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not yet. Just a quiet confirmation of something I already understood. She didn't just lose me. She chose the one person who had the most to gain from her not knowing the truth. She found me faster than I expected, not through anything obvious, not through records or calls or anything direct, through people. There's always someone who talks just a little too much, shares just a little too casually. A location mentioned, a detail dropped, a pattern traced backward. It took her time, but she got there. I saw her before she saw me. Late afternoon, the sky clear for once. The air carried that quiet coastal stillness that makes everything feel slower than it is. I was sitting outside a small cafe near the water, a cup of coffee cooling in front of me, and across the street. She stopped. Lauren looked different, not in a dramatic way. No visible collapse, no obvious damage, but the control was gone. Her posture wasn't precise anymore. Her movements had hesitation in them, like she was thinking half a second too late. Even the way she held her bag, tighter than necessary. She scanned the area, searching. Then her eyes landed on me, and everything else dropped away. She crossed the street too quickly, almost misjudging the distance of a passing car. Didn't even notice. Her focus locked in. Ethan. My name sounded unfamiliar in her voice. I didn't stand up, didn't rush, just looked at her the same way I had in the garage. Calm, measured, final. I've been trying to find you, she said, breath slightly uneven. I know. That stopped her for a second. She looked at the empty chair across from me, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to sit anymore. You just disappeared, she said. I didn't answer that, because that part didn't require explanation. Her eyes moved over me, searching for something. Anger, resentment, anything she could recognize. She didn't find it. Then she noticed she wasn't the only one there. You didn't come alone, she asked. I turned slightly, and that's when the second shift happened. At the table beside mine, she sat quietly, watching the ocean. Dark hair pulled back, simple white shirt. No attempt to draw attention. But Lauren recognized her instantly. I saw in the way her face changed. Not confusion. Recognition, followed by something sharper. No, I said calmly. I didn't. The woman turned her head slightly, meeting Lauren's eyes without urgency. There was no tension in her posture, no need to prove anything, just presence, and that made it worse. Her, Lauren said, almost under her breath. A memory moved behind her eyes. Years ago, different setting, different power dynamic. Lauren standing where she felt untouchable, and the woman sitting beside me now, standing alone on the other side of that, pushed out, dismissed, humiliated. I remembered the story. Lauren had told it once, casually, like it didn't matter. But people remember those moments, especially when no one expects them to come back around. She works with you now? Lauren asked, tried to regain structure in her voice. No, I said, she doesn't. That was all I gave her, because the truth was simpler than anything she was trying to piece together. This wasn't coincidence, and it wasn't accidental. Lauren looked between us, tried to understand connection, tried to rebuild control out of fragments she didn't fully have. But the moment had already passed her, because for the first time since all of this started, she wasn't the one choosing the position she stood in. She was reacting to one she didn't see coming. Lauren didn't sit down. She stayed standing there, caught between leaving and staying, like either choice would confirm something she wasn't ready to accept. What is this? She asked. Not to me, to the situation, to the fact that nothing in front of her made sense anymore. I picked up my coffee, took a slow sip, then set it back down. You came a long way, I said. You should sit. I'm not here to sit, she snapped, but there was no weight behind it. Just strain. Her eyes moved again to the woman beside me. Why her? That question carried history. And fear. I leaned back slightly in my chair, studying her the way you look at something already finished. Because she understands consequences, I said. The woman beside me didn't speak. She didn't need to. Lauren let out a short, sharp breath. You're doing this to hurt me. No, I said calmly. You did that yourself. Silence stretched between us. Wind moved lightly off the water, shifting the edge of her hair across her face. She didn't fix it. Then what is this? She asked again, quieter now. This time, I answered. I knew before the garage. That landed, harder than anything else. Her expression broke, not into emotion, but into confusion. What? The classes, the rides, the phone. I watched her process each word. The envelope. Her lips parted slightly. That's not. I didn't stop you. I continued, steady. I didn't interrupt. I didn't confront. Why? She asked. There it was. The question she actually needed answered. I held her gaze. Because I needed you to commit to it. The color drained from her face. Not dramatically. Just enough. You think this is some kind of game? She said. But now there was something under it. Fear. No, I said. This is structure. She shook her head, trying to reject it. But she was already listening. The man you chose, I went on. He wasn't random. Her eyes flickered. That told me she had started to learn pieces of it. But not enough. He knew exactly who I was. I said. What I had access to. Who I worked with. Lauren went very still. No, she said quietly. That's not true. It is. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't push. Just let the truth sit there. He didn't choose you, I added. He used you. Her breathing changed. Small. Shallow. You're lying. I'm not. The woman beside me finally spoke. Her voice calm, level. I've seen the messages. Lauren turned toward her like she had been struck. Recognition twisted into something worse. Because now it wasn't just me saying it. It was someone she had once dismissed. Someone she had once pushed down without consequence. And now, that same person was sitting here, calm, steady, untouchable. How long? Lauren asked, her voice barely holding. Long enough, I said. She took a step back. Then another, trying to create space between herself and something she couldn't control. This doesn't make sense, she said. It does, I replied. You just weren't meant to see it. Silence again. Longer this time. Then she looked at me one last time. Not with anger, not with control, with realization. Because now she understood something she hadn't before. This didn't start in the garage. It didn't start with the papers. It didn't even start with him. It started the moment she believed she could move pieces around, without becoming one herself. You planned this, she said. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. I finished it. That was the difference. She stood there for a second longer. Then she turned. No last words. No attempt to fix anything. Because there was nothing left in her reach. I watched her walk away until she disappeared past the line of buildings. Then I looked back out at the water. Still calm. Unchanged. The woman beside me didn't ask anything. Didn't need to. Some things don't require discussion once they're over. After a moment, I stood up, leaving cash on the table. Ready? I asked. She nodded once, and we walked away in the opposite direction. No rush. No, wait. Just forward. Laura would spend a long time trying to understand what happened, reconstructing timelines, questioning decisions, realizing, piece by piece, how deep it all went. But by the time she saw the full picture, it wouldn't matter, because my life had already moved into a place where she didn't exist anymore.